From Kern Government Television, welcome to this week's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting, originating from the County Administrative Center located at 1115 Truxtun Avenue, Bakersfield, California. Kern County's vision is to create and maintain a customer-centered county government designed to garner the confidence, support, and trust of the people we serve. Today's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting will convene momentarily.
Good morning. Welcome to the Tuesday, May 1 meeting of the Kern County Board of Supervisors. This is the morning session, and we welcome you to our meeting this morning. Madam, the board will reconvene, and Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Supervisor Gleason?
Here.
Supervisor Scrivener?
Here.
Supervisor Maggard?
Here.
Supervisor Couch?
Here.
Supervisor Perez?
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We're going to begin our meeting with a salute to the flag and then follow that with a moment of prayer, silence, or meditation. I want us to remember this morning, and if you are a person who prays, pray for the family of Pat Cheadle, our former Director of Human Services, who passed away very unfortunately on Sunday. So let's remember Pat, and the flag salute is going to be led by Rob Purdy, who is a board member with Valley Fever Americas Foundation. Mr. Purdy.
Salute and pledge. I pledge allegiance to the
the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Please be seated. We're going to begin our meeting this morning with our consent agenda. Consent items are routine in nature, as indicated by our staff when they put them on the consent agenda. They are, if you have questions about those items, we're going to offer you an opportunity to do that before we adopt the consent agenda. If board members wish to pull an item from consent, they can do so at their discretion. So let's go over the consent items. They start on page 2, at the bottom of the page, number 10. Then on page 3, items 11 through, excuse me? Oh, the clerk is pointing out to me that I overlooked items 5 and 6. So let's start over. On page 2, items 5, 6, and 10 are on consent. On page 3, items 11 through 13, and then 15 through 18 are on consent. On page 4, items 19 through 26, all the items are on consent. On page 5, item 27, and then items 29 through 34 are on consent. On page 6, items 35 and 36, and then 38 through 41 are on consent. On page 7, items 42 through 45 are on consent. With regard to item number 43, if you're following along on the agendas, item number 43 is a proposed retroactive agreement to amendment number 1 to an agreement that's numbered 754-2017. I need to change that number to read 756-2017, 756-2017. So are there any members of the public that wish to ask a question about any item that's on consent? Good morning. Could you give us your name for the record, please?
Yes. Good morning, Board. David Fluhart, Havilah, 1st District. I wanted to talk about consent agenda items 15 through 26. Basically, it's approximately $4 million going towards mental health support of, houses and doctors and bus tickets and everything else. And I wanted to thank the board for making a strong effort towards mental health, because it's a growing crisis in our society and things are getting more drastic with each person popping off and whatnot. And you guys have done a really good effort, and you guys have put a lot of time and effort into it. You guys have remodeled Mary Kay Shell, continued the UCLA residency outpatient clinic for the doctors, and invested in further educating the people there at behavioral health and recovery services, and I really appreciate those people. But at some point, it's not going to work if everything isn't working really well. And I see 2 problems. One is financial. this whole department, which is over $100 million and 400 employees, is, if I remember right, primarily from the state and federal government. And, you know, we're going to have some problems with them because they're basically broke too. And the other issue is at some point, you know, this local government, your board, as pillars of society, you guys lead an example. And at some point, I would like to kindly suggest you might want to look in the mirror and see where some of your decisions in the past and in the future are going to affect the people, your citizenry. You know, at some point, I'd say you're like 2% sick, and you know, you're not creating karma good with some of the things you guys do, and it just creates a vicious cycle. You know, of you guys smashing somebody down and then trying to pick them up on the other end. So you guys need to focus on that a little bit, and you know, I'm trying to be as nice as I can about it and be respectful and all that good stuff. And the second thing is consent agenda item number 5. It's basically Older Americans Month. It's hard for me to remember, so I just call it Old People's Month. But basically, I appreciate your efforts to protect the elderly because, you know, just because they're elderly, people can take advantage of them. And it's almost like, I don't know, what do you call it when you surround a city and you just starve them to death? I mean, a siege. It's like a siege on their age. You know, at some point, people take advantage of them because their cognitive abilities aren't all there. They, you know, we can name millions of problems. So those are 2 aspects I just want to talk about, you know, looking in the mirror and trying to take care of old people. That's part of what we're here for, and thank you for your time, your effort, your patience, and have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Fluhart. Would any other members of the public like to make comment about an item that's on consent? I don't see anyone, so we're going to close that, return to the board. Colleagues, do you have any comments about consent or questions, or is there a motion to proceed with the consent agenda?
Move approval.
Thank you. Is there a second? Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved, 4 ayes, 1 absent. Supervisor Perez.
Thank you. We're going to have a resolution. Item number 1 next on our agenda is a resolution commemorating the 100th anniversary of U.S. airmail, and that is going to be presented by Supervisor Gleason.
Motion on resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved, 4 ayes, 1 absent. Supervisor Perez.
U.S. airmail, wow. 1918, is that when it started? We have a resolution commemorating the 100th anniversary of the United States airmail. And we have some people here from Atlantic Aviation, Meadows Field, and Linda here to help us honor this great initiative and this great tradition. The first government-operated airmail flight in America took place in May of 1918 with President Wilson. The members of Congress watched a young Army, well, you know, Army, that's okay. Army pilot eased a wood and fabric biplane from the Potomac Park in Washington, D.C., bound for New York. The first government-operated airmail flight in America was underway. To mark the anniversary of that service, the 100th year anniversary of that service, 3 vintage biplanes will retrace the pioneering West Coast airmail route, Contract Airmail 8, from San Diego to Seattle, May 13th, May 18th. That would be a great, great experience. I would just love to do that. And they're going to have the opportunity to stop at Meadows Field. So I'm going to pass this off to our interim airport director and ask her to explain the value of U.S. airmail stopping at Meadows Field. And please accept this resolution on behalf of the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you, Supervisor Gleason, Chairman Maggard, members of the board. We're very honored to be one of the stops along this very historic recreation of contract airmail Route 8. These planes are very historic. There are only 7 of them left flying in existence today. And I'd like to ask Linda LaForce, the Postmaster General, to say a few words about airmail in general, and then I'll have Heather Fallis from Atlantic Aviation explain some of the activities that will be taking place over the 2 days those planes are here at Meadows Field. Linda, would you like to say a couple words?
First, I'd like to thank the board for the resolution. I appreciate that. My name's Linda LaForce. I'm Postmaster of Bakersfield, and it's a great event that we're planning. That the planes are going to make many stops, and I think that just the historic value of people seeing these biplanes from a bygone century will be very nice for the public, and we appreciate having people come out to Atlantic Aviation, where the event's going to be held not next Monday, but the following Monday. And okay, Heather's going to explain all of that part.
Thank you. I'm Heather Fallis with Atlantic Aviation at Meadows Field. We are honored to be hosting the CAM Flight 100 Centennial Anniversary of Airmail. The aircraft will be coming in on Mother's Day evening, and we'll be hanging them with us. On Monday morning, the day after Mother's Day, from 9 to 11:30 in the morning, the public, the supervisors, everyone's invited out to come purchase some cachets, which is an envelope. Those envelopes will be following the whole rest of the path, and they'll be postmarked, and at the end, you'll get your envelope back with the postmarks from the CAM route. And 11:45 to, let's see, that's from 9 to 11:30. At 11:45, they will be starting their engines, and at 12:05, they will be departing to head out to Fresno and the rest of the CAM route. So we do invite you. We will have an area inside the airfield for supervisors, for anyone that wants to come out, VIPs. And then just outside the airfield, we're going to be having the cachets for sale. So we welcome you, and we hope that you can make it. Thank you.
Outstanding. Are they open up any seats?
I'm not sure about that, but give me a call, and I'll see what we can work
I
out.
think Supervisor Maggart would very much like to fly in one of those planes.
We might be able to work that out.
Can we get some pictures?
Let's walk a wing together.
This is for you guys to hold on to.
As I understand it, Bakersfield was on the original route of the airmail process as it was founded, and that's why we became, we were honored to be a part of this series of events as well. So
That's true. They're making all the same stops.
yeah, very good. All the same stops. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have 2 proclamations to be presented by Supervisor Scrivener. Item number 2 on our agenda is a proclamation proclaiming May 1, 2018 as Give Big Kern Day in Kern County. And then he's also going to present item number 4, which is a proclamation proclaiming May 2018 as Mental Health Awareness Month in Kern County.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Motion on items 2 and 4.
Second.
Thank you. Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved. 4 ayes, 1 absent. Supervisor Perez.
So could the folks with Give Big Kern come on up, and Supervisor Scrivener will meet you down at the microphone. It's cold.
You guys can all come on around. Yeah, you, Kristen here and everybody. All right. Well, yeah, get him up there. Good deal. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. It's my pleasure to be here before you today. The Kern Community Foundation is celebrating the 3rd year of Give Big Kern, a day of online giving to local nonprofits. More than 130 local nonprofits from across Kern County have set up their own fundraising page at givebigkern.org, which is fully paid for by the Kern Community Foundation with support from numerous sponsors in the community. Give Big Kern engages individuals and corporate donors and volunteers in supporting Kern's hard-working nonprofits monetarily and through volunteer pledges. It provides a vehicle for the generous nature of Kern's citizens to truly shine as they give generously to the charitable causes they care about. So on behalf of the Kern County Board of Supervisors, it's my pleasure to proclaim May 1st, 2018 as Give Big Kern Day in Kern County, and accepting this proclamation is Kristen Beal, President and CEO of the Kern Community Foundation. So Kristen, come on up here and I'll ask if you'd like to say a few words to us as well. Thank you.
Thank you
so much. You too.
Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you so much for this honor. I just want to start by announcing to the group that we just checked, and we are approaching $110,000 already in the first 10 hours or so of Give Big Kern. So a fantastic start. This is really an opportunity for us to bring the community together. It's about engaging as many community members as possible to think about how they can, in fact, practice philanthropy. And philanthropy is not about the size of the check that you can write. It's about the resources that you can give to the causes that you care about. So Give Big Kern is an opportunity to donate dollars. It's also an opportunity to pledge volunteer hours. And it's also an opportunity to just learn more about the wonderful nonprofit work that happens day in and day out throughout Kern County. So we're pleased to be able to bring this and pleased for this honor. And I hope everyone will wear their Give Big Kern pins proudly today.
All right.
All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's get a picture.
Yes.
Let me get a picture back.
Which way?
Let's
This way?
Yeah, let's
and
look
then
at, and then we have, you guys want to come around?
Come around?
We'll turn. Yeah, come on up.
Whatever's easiest.
Yeah, come on up. Okay, so we're going to pivot now? Okay.
Put the little guy in front.
The little guy up there. There we go.
He wants out of here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Okay, now can we have the folks for item 4 to come on up? We've got a big crowd for this one too. Come on up, everybody. Hey, how you doing, sir? Good to see you. Wow, we have a big crowd here today for item 4, and this is to proclaim May 2018 as Mental Health Awareness Month in Kern County. The tradition of naming May as Mental Health Awareness Month began in 1949 as a unified effort to raise public awareness of mental health issues and promote mental health wellness for all. The theme for 2018 is Changing Minds About Mental Health. Progress has been made over the years to increase the public's awareness of mental health issues, but there remain significant stigmas attached to those who have mental health conditions. All throughout the month of May, events have been planned with community providers of mental health services in Kern County. These events will serve to educate the public about the truth of mental illness. There will be luncheons, an art show entitled When Illness Becomes Wellness, featuring artwork from mental health providers and consumers. The first anniversary celebration of the Consumer Family Learning Center, and screenings of important mental health films at the Fox Theater and the Beale Library. Too many people have been silent about their mental health illness, and far too many wait until someone is in danger, either to themselves or others, before they act. This May, the Kern Behavioral Health and Recovery Services and the Kern County Board of Supervisors ask everyone in the community to consider their views on mental illness and to respect those who live with mental illness. And so therefore, I'd like to present this proclamation, and Bill Walker, who heads up our Behavioral Health and Recovery Services, I'm gonna hand this over to you. And so this reads, the Board of Supervisors of the County of Kern, State of California, has officially proclaimed May 2018 as Mental Health Awareness Month in Kern County, and this recognition has been entered into our official minutes and signed by our Honorable Chairman, Mike Maggard. Mr. Walker, here you are, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks for everything you do.
Well, good morning, Chairman, members of the board. Bill Walker, your Kern Behavioral Health and Recovery Services. We do this every month, and of course, we do this and several other proclamations, but I really like doing this proclamation. And we decided in our own group, what did we want the theme to be? And of course, it was the theme that was read, but there's another theme that we want to bring to you. And I'm joined by several county staff. I'm joined by several contracted programs, other agencies and county agencies. And it's been a tough year. It's been a tough year physically for this county. It's been a tough year for the board at times. But there's one thing that has never wavered, and that's been your support, both of this department and of people who suffer with mental illness and substance use disorders. And so really our theme, and the reason why we are all here today, is to thank you as a board. Brad is going to stand up for a moment and tell you a little bit about our events. But I really wanted to actually have everyone on three join me to thank the board. 1, 2, 3, thank you. And for those of you that work for Clinica, everyone raise your hand who works for Clinica. Everyone who works for College Community Services, raise your hand. And do we have child guidance in the house? Do we have the Homeless Collaborative in the house? Yeah, we're all partners in this, and there's many other agencies as well. So Brad is going to, and this is Brad's last presentation because he'll be retiring this year, but he's going to go over a little bit of the events for May's Mental Health Month. Brad?
Thank you, Bill, and thank you, Board. We have a number of great events happening throughout the month. Those can be found on our website, kernbhrs.org. And of course, you can get there through the county's beautiful, new, and helpful website as well. So I'll just talk about a few of those events. We do have a celebration of our Consumer Family Learning Center here in Bakersfield that operates 7 days a week. 1 year old this month. We're showing a film at the Beale Library, free to the public. Mommy, Me, and a Movie will be showing Inside Out at that film on May 10th. We're having a symposium on Simposio de Salud Mental primarily for people who speak Spanish and are wanting to learn about and address mental health issues. The Power of Music Festival at Martin Luther King Park on May 19th. Our Academy Awards, and we are deeply honored that Chairman Maggard has agreed to co-present our awards with us on May 23rd. The aforementioned film at the first time this year at the Fox Theater on May 30th, again free to the public, Infinitely Polar Bear, a film about bipolar disorder and how it affects families. And then our month-long art show, which will be at the Consumer Family Learning Center the first week at 2001 28th Street, and for the rest of the month at the gallery at the Fox Theater. So people will be able to walk by the gallery and see it from outdoors 24/7. One of the big things that we're doing, I've just been really impressed by all the partnership that we have in the community on the prior proclamations that we heard about. We've got some great things going too. We have a Wear Green, Save Green event where we've partnered with businesses in the community to help us bring and raise awareness about mental health issues. And if you wear this little ribbon all for the month of May, you get some pretty nice discounts at some of those businesses. The Guild House is one of our big partners. They'll be displaying art there all month, but you can also get a discount just by wearing that ribbon in. We have about a dozen businesses that are helping us with that, because they know that 1 in 5 of us are affected in our lifetime by mental illness. Virtually all of us know somebody, loves somebody who suffers from mental illness, and we can all band together to help with that and improve support and care and recovery. So thank you all for your continued support, and I'll pass back to Bill.
Just want to close by saying you have a copy of what Brad was going over and the different events and places. I want to point out Estella Padilla, who's really the person who organized most of this, one of those great staff that often people don't see, but it's great work. And our chair of our Behavioral Health Board, David Sabenfeld, has also joined us today, as well as other members. Thank you very much for this proclamation. Thank you, Supervisor.
Thanks for all you guys do. Next, Supervisor Couch will present item number 3, which is a proclamation proclaiming May 2018 as Foster Care Awareness Month in Kern County.
Motion on the proclamation.
Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved, 4 ayes, 1 absent. Supervisor Perez.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm joined today by Monica Reese and our Director of Human Services, Dina Murphy. And I'm just going to say a couple words and turn it over to Dina. I'm sure that she's got more important things to tell us about, but I just want to make the observation. Today's Give Big Kern, we're recognizing that, and I don't know how much more you can give if you are a foster parent. And it always amazes me. I didn't have much experience with that, maybe in my prior life, prior to coming to the county. And when you see what happens here at DHS and all the agencies that are represented today that they work with, and how we impact the lives of children, it's really touching, and it's really important work. We have lots of projects that we can see, roads and buildings and parks, but sometimes our most important projects are young people, and that's what these people do on a daily basis. I'll just read the proclamation and turn it over to Dina. It reads, the Board of Supervisors, County of Kern, State of California has officially proclaimed May 2018 as Foster Care Awareness Month in Kern County. Recognition has been entered into the official board minutes as evidenced by the signature of our chairman, the Honorable Mike Maggard, as stated today, May 1st. Dina? Want to make a few comments?
I'm going to move Monica right in front of the camera. That way the kids at home can see her. Can't run away now. You're stuck with us. Thank you, Supervisor Couch. I'm Dina Murphy, your Department Head for Human Services. I'd like to thank you this morning for providing this proclamation for Foster Care Awareness Month. As we recognize every May nationally, I'm joined here today by Monica Ruiz, who opened her heart and her home. We refer to as a NERFM, and that is a non-related extended family member. So her children were friends with the children that she took in. She took in a 10-year-old and an 11-year-old little girl, and she has a biological 13 and 15-year-old, I guess we call them tweenies, and then a 17-year-old son. So I told her, I said, wow, your house must just like rock with the little preteens and teens, 4 girls at that age. And then I thought, rock like a volcano. Heard about that point in time. According to the social worker who nominated Monica, her name is Petra Gomez, the social worker. She wanted us to know how special Monica is and how she meets every need of the children. She goes above and beyond to incorporate them in everything, participate in their school activities, be available to the social worker, compassionate to the children, and she makes family nights where everything is circled at the core of love and family, and the children really look forward to it, and no one is allowed to break that time, not even into that time, not even the social worker, which she gets a giggle out of. And just the appreciation that we feel for her extending her heart and her home to these children because she was someone familiar, and that reduced the amount of trauma that the children felt when they needed to come into the system through no fault of their own. So she's really a blessed little hero, and in just about 2 minutes we'll have her make a couple of comments if she'd like to. But I'd just like to thank her and then tell you a little bit about what we're doing this month. So May, across communities, we celebrate the loving support provided by these lovely individuals to children in the foster care system. And we have roughly 2,000 of them in the system now, 2,100. We also thank our foster families and relative caregivers and acknowledge how blessed we are to have also a community of passionate collaborators who circle these children, and some of those include Kern County Network for Children, Youth Foster Services, our court-appointed special advocates, CASA. Those are individuals who, caring individuals who advocate in the court system for our youth. And the Dream Center, who mentor these children every single day, also with the help of some of the churches that circle to role model. We've already held a couple of events. One was the Empowering Conference on February 23rd up at Bakersfield College, and that was really about trauma, the trauma foster children had faced, and about them establishing bonds, reaching out and having good relationships with social workers and their foster families, and moving forward maybe in family maintenance with connections for the future. And also celebrating 79 foster youth who are about to graduate in June this year. So we had a lovely graduation ceremony for them. Also, to kick off this week, Foster Care Awareness Month, we are partnering with Bakersfield College to host an annual Parent Appreciation Dinner and training that will take place at Hodell's on Thursday evening. Again, these children in foster care come from all types of situations of abuse or neglect, and when they're in the process of trying to reunify, it is our relative caregivers, our foster care folks, our foster care agency homes who circle these children with love and support and nurture them while we're either trying to get them back with their bio families or looking for adoptive families and forever families if they're not able to return to their families. Kern County caregivers are valued, respected, supported, skilled partners who provide safe, loving homes, commit to the development and success of the children, and encourage family connections and nurturing relationships, and maintain lifetime long relationships with these children whenever possible. There are also hundreds of certified foster family homes through agencies that should also be recognized. I'm honored to have Monica say a few words if she's willing to. She's a little bit nervous, but God bless you for what you do, and I will turn the mic to you. So come right.
Hello, my name is Monica Reese. I became a foster parent. I lost my daughter in 2016, and I didn't find a purpose. After I lost my daughter, I didn't know my purpose to this world, to still be here, and I became a mother again to kids that need to be mother. So I would like to thank you.
We admire you for what you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is item number 7, an opportunity for the public to make comment to us about any matters that are not otherwise on our agenda this morning. So if you are here and would like to do that, we offer 2 minutes to each person who would like to come to the microphone, and please give us your name and what you'd like to talk about, and then you have 2 minutes to make your statement. Good morning, Mr. Gill. Could you give us your name for the record?
Good morning. My name is Louis Gill, and I'm with the Bakersfield Homeless Center and the Alliance Against Family Violence. And if I could, before my 2 minutes start, real quick, I would like to ask everyone from the Kern County Homeless Collaborative that's with us if they could stand, please. We have the mission at Kern County. We have Clinica Sierra Vista, United Way, who has our homeless collaborative, and of course the Housing Authority and Behavioral Health. Many of us that work together. I'm here really in response to, I got to watch the video of the April 24th meeting. We're very excited to see that both the public and the Board of Supervisors are engaged in the issue of homelessness. We do have a growing problem in Kern County. That is the truth. But the truth is it's a problem all over the entire state of California. Why is that happening? Well, there's a lot of reasons. Substance abuse, mental illness. In California, we got a couple of different factors. Prop 47, AB 109 is different for us than the rest of the nation. A lot of people don't have a personal safety net. I was fortunate I was raised by a bunch of cowboys up in Springville, and there was no way they were going to let me fall all the way to the street. Not everybody does. Some people time out of foster care. And the big elephant in the room that nobody's talking about, lack of affordable housing. People are concerned and they're fearful, and they came forward. They definitely made it clear that they feel like stuff's not being done. Heather Kimmel with the Housing Authority is going to follow behind me and explain the work that is being done. I do want to tell you that just with BHC, just the homeless center, we placed more than 1,000 people through our programs in permanent housing. That's many more times over what our emergency shelters can hold here in Kern County. Still, more has to be done. There's this concern, which is really a myth, that people are being sent to us from other counties. It's just not what we have found. Yes, there are church groups in other areas that are researching and finding families and saying, hey, there's a place for people to land. And lo and behold, they get and reunify with their families. Sometimes it doesn't work out. They wind up on the street. We provide services for them. So I don't doubt that people are on Greyhound or on Amtrak, but we cannot find a mass program that's shipping people to us. We're grateful that we are in this conversation, but I ask to remind the board and our community that we're talking about our neighbors, that Supervisor Gleason was kind enough to share that he has family that's experiencing this exact hardship. These are people that we love and care for. There's this false belief in society that we can't fall prey to, that some lives are worth more than others. And the truth is that every life deserves dignity. And we are very grateful and excited to begin this conversation with you. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gill. Ms. Kimball, come forward. Mr. Gill, Supervisor Gleason would like to have some contact information from you. So do you want to say that at the microphone? Oh, you can give it right there to Leanne, who is sitting right beside you. And she'll tackle you if you leave without doing it. Thank you. Ms. Kimball.
Good morning. So I would just like to follow up with some of the comments that Mr. Gill made and provide some data. The people in the room who know me, that's my area of expertise. So I'd like to provide some data to show the board and the public what is being done and the progress that we've made. So we found that 74% of people became homeless while already living in Kern County. So that backs up what we're finding in our programs, that they're not this mass coming from other areas. Since we began reporting data to HUD on our annual homeless point in time count in 2007, we actually have seen a 58% decrease in homelessness in Kern County since 2007. In January of 2018, our homeless programs were running at 96% capacity, which is a 10% increase since 2016. So our programs are more effective. We've increased our HUD funding by 16% since 2014, which is only possible if HUD deems our community a high performer. Not every community gets to increase their HUD funding. Since 2017, we've increased permanent supportive housing vouchers by 53%, and we've increased rapid rehousing placements by 21%. With all of this progress, we do acknowledge that there's still a lot of work to be done. This last homeless point in time count saw a 9% increase in homelessness in Kern County and a 46% increase in the unsheltered population in Bakersfield. The Homeless Collaborative has been working hard to analyze the gaps in our programs and the needs of our service providers. We're actively working to develop resources to address these gaps. On behalf of the Kern County Homeless Collaborative, we'd like to invite the Board of Supervisors to continue this conversation with us. We'd like to propose the idea of having an in-service day or a workshop to really dig into the issue and the gaps that we're identifying. We know that it takes a community to solve homelessness, and together we can continue this progress that we've seen over the last 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Heather, can you provide me your last name?
Sure, it's Kimmel, K-I-M-M-E-L.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak to us this morning about matters that are not otherwise on our agenda? We thank you for being here and for sharing your thoughts. And we do look forward to partnering with you to try to do something substantive about our homelessness crisis that we have. Next, we're going to go to the Board of Supervisors. Do any members of the board wish to make a comment or a report this morning? Very good. Then next would be item number 9, which is from the Department of Aging and Adult Services. Lito Murillo, our Chief of Aging and Adult Services, is going to accept a gracious grant from PG&E. I think Pat Mullen is going to speak or dance or sing or something.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Lito Murillo, your Director of Aging and Adult Services. I'm joined here today by Jeffrey Hill from General Services and representatives from PG&E, Pat Mullen, Jim Hendricks, Anita Maxey, Kristen Dowd, and Katie Allen, and our transportation partners, Bob Neath from Kern Transit. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank PG&E for this grant. This grant has been provided by PG&E since 2007, and we really couldn't operate these cooling centers without this grant. All in total, we have about 14 cooling centers throughout Kern County now. We're going to operate the cooling center starting on May 15th, and it'll run through September 22nd. Through our cooling centers, our seniors, disabled adults, and families have a place to go to escape the extreme hot weather conditions we experience here in Kern County. Yesterday, I had an opportunity to meet with Norma Harrell from East Nile Senior Center. I know Supervisor Maggard, you're familiar with who Norma is. She said something that was really pretty profound. She says, you know, I told her about the cooling centers when that was starting up, and she said, you know, these cooling centers are really great. A lot of our seniors really experience the hot summer days here, and this is a great escape for them to come to this center and actually just get away and still have air conditioning, which is a luxury for them. And it allows them to save money so they can buy other things like food and medicine and other essentials, which is really kind of something we take for granted, the luxury of just normal basic air conditioning. This grant also allows us to pay for staffing from general services, the snacks, that water we provide at the senior centers, as well as the games, and the transportation services provided by Get a Lift and Kern Transit and all our other transportation partners. I'm proud to say that Kern County's model is pretty unique in the state. Our partnerships and collaboration with other organizations, cities, is something that other counties and cities have called us on to figure out how we do it here in Kern County. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank General Services and their staff, particularly Leslie Wallace, for collaborating with us on this project, and from my department, Michelle Timmerman, who serves as our coordinator and liaison with PG&E. Again, I'd like to thank PG&E for this amazing grant, and I'll turn it over to Pat Mullen, who has a few words to say. So thank you.
Good morning, Pat. Sorry, good morning, Mr. Mullen. Nice to have you with us today.
Good morning, Chairman Maggard. Good morning, supervisors, staff, and members of the public. As Lito mentioned, my name is Pat Mullen. I'm the Kern Division Director for Pacific Gas and Electric Company, and here with my 4 colleagues today and our partners with Aging and Adult Services, General Services, and Kern Transit. We're pleased to support this program and support the county in this program. PG&E is privileged to serve Kern County. Our 600 employees not only work here, but call Kern County home. And so the services that are provided by Aging and Adult Services, we see the evidence of every day. We're proud to partner with them to make this grant for these cooling centers. As you heard from Lito, they are vital to many members of our community, especially some of the aging and those that don't have the access or ability for air conditioning or cooling, especially when we get to the extreme weather that we often experience in the summer. So again, we're pleased to support the county on this and to be part of this community and to give back to this community. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mullen, and your company and all those you work with. PG&E is a great corporate neighbor for us here, so thank you. Somebody gonna take a photograph? A big check in several ways.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We would like to hear from the public. Would any members of the public like to make comment about this generous grant this morning? We have somebody coming down. Please give us your name for the record.
Good morning, David Fluhart, Havelock First District. I want to personally say thank you for grants and cooling centers and whatnot. My grandmother, she's 96 years old. She's a tough old bird. She lives in LA though. But she always goes to basically the cooling center down there in LA and the senior center, and basically 4 or 5 days out of the week. You know, takes the bus there and arranges different transportation and whatnot. And as a larger picture, the library is a cooling center. I know I've hung out at the law library because it's less crowded and it's cool. There are so many places that the government provides for people, and I just want to say you guys need to keep that up. And I know that's hard to do with the budget. You know, when it gets tight, you start cutting the library, you cut this and that, but it's vital. Especially to the older people that have a hard time. And remember, this is old people's month, so we're trying to, you know, work for them and keep them going and everything, because one day hopefully we'll all be there, and we'll all have respect for old people and all that good stuff. So thank you very much and have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Fluhart. Would any other members of the public like to make comment? How about members of the board? Is there a motion then that we thank them for their generous grant and receive and file their donation?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Please cast your votes. Thank you very much, you guys.
The motion is approved, 4 ayes, 1 absent. Supervisor Perez.
Next would be item number 14, which is a proposed amendment. This is from the Behavioral Health and Recovery Services. It's a proposed amendment to a Memorandum of Understanding with the Housing Authority. Mr. Walker.
Good morning. Bill Walker again, your Kern Behavioral Health and Recovery Services. Item 14 is actually fairly straightforward, but I'm going to be adding a few more comments to it regarding some of the comments that were made on homelessness. First, I think they're just leaving, but our clients use those cooling stations, and they're a life saver for people who are down and out and on the streets. The proposed amendment is for us to extend the time period of our No Place Like Home grant. Our No Place Like Home grant is an opportunity for us to compete for dollars that are being taken from MHSA dollars. There's $2 billion in a set aside, and then we compete. We're one of the large counties that would compete for that. We've already drawn down the $150,000 technical assistance dollars. Unfortunately, the larger amount of money that we could compete for is currently tied up in litigation. And so this is where I was thinking of the ladies who came forward last week, is that when I watched that tape twice because I wasn't here, and I actually agreed with a lot of what they were saying, is that we have a great collaborative, but it pretty much operates in obscurity. A lot of people really don't know what it does. We've been working for a year on this No Place Like Home, and it's caught up in litigation. We have all the plans to try to set up more affordable housing, supported housing, which would require us to support it for 20 years with services to the people living there. But right now that's tied up. And so when the lady spoke, it reminded me, actually, I thought of my stepfather, and I thought of when he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And he had to have a surgery called a Whipple surgery. And at the time, the doctor said, there's a vein called the portal vein, and he said, if the cancer has invaded that vein, then the surgery won't work. And they couldn't see on the scope whether it had invaded the vein or not. So we all get there like 6 in the morning, it's like an 8 or 9 hour surgery, and we wait. And when it's done, the doctor comes out and he sits with us to tell us whether they were able to complete the surgery and that my father would live for several more years, or whether he would probably die within weeks to months because they couldn't. And at the time, before he even spoke, it was vitally important that the doctor was transparent and we knew what they were doing. And so I think one of the failures we've done is I don't think we've been transparent enough to the board and to the public of all that we are doing with our programs. And so I'm not going to try to go through every one of the programs today. They try to talk a little bit about some of them from the Housing Collaborative. But I think what we want to do in the coming weeks, along with our CAO, is pull together the collaborative and some of the other groups and faith groups that are doing things, and even our department allocating more dollars into homeless outreach so that we can bring back in front of the board, not a video, but a lot of statistics of things that we're doing, boots on the street. So with that, therefore, it is recommended that your board on this item approve the proposed amendment number 1 to Memorandum of Understanding with the Housing Authority of the County of Kern to modify the terms of the MOU from June 20th, 2017 to December 31st, 2019 to May 1st, 2018 through December 22nd, December 2022 in order to secure the funding that will allow for the implementation of the No Place Like Home program and authorize the chairman to sign. And I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Would any members of the public like to make comment to us about this item this morning? Good morning again.
Good morning again. David Fluart, 1st District, Havilah. Geez, we're talking about affordable housing and memorandum of understanding. I totally support Mr. Walker here. I actually consider him a friend and a helpful person. And beyond just the collaborative and whatnot, you know, earlier I mentioned a vicious cycle of beating somebody down and trying to pick them up. Hopefully in the future we can figure out more ways of doing things differently so we can keep people in their homes. I know in the afternoon there's going to be a whole bunch of consent agenda items where the county is trying to clean up people's properties and whatnot. I don't know if mental health and code compliance can work together to try and, you know, figure out if there's a problem here or if they just don't want the property or what. I don't know. I'm lost for words, which is kind of strange, but I support mental health and I support creation of new memorandums of understanding to create, you know, more affordable housing. And I don't know, I just thought I had to come up here and help out Mr. Walker because he's helped me out so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would any members of the public like to make comment about our proposed amendment to this memorandum? And we return to the board. The requested action is for us to approve the amendment and to authorize the chairman to sign.
I'll move staff's recommendation.
Second, with the caveat that you let me know when that workshop is that Heather talked about, when you're going to get together for that whole, just keep me posted, and I'll second the motion.
Thank you very much. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved, 4 ayes, 1 absent. Supervisor Perez.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Walker.
Thank you, and I forgot to mention that I gave you packets that actually does have a lot of detail on our current housing proposals. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is item number 28, which is a request for this is regarding the CAO's office, a request for the authorization of a temporary loan from the general fund in the amount of $14 million to the fire fund. Mr. Alsop, are you going to begin this discussion?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the board. This item, as you recall, we took up last week. It's to address an acute cash flow issue in our fire department. I do, before handing it over to Ms. Martinez in my office to walk you through the item, I want to thank the fire chief. We've been working closely with the fire chief on this, and Mr. Brown, Thomas Brown in my office, and particularly our state legislative delegation, who have been extremely helpful in bringing this to the attention or to greater attention to CAL FIRE and Cal OES on our behalf. The response has been a good response. We've seen a lot of activity in the last week or so. I also want to thank Mr. Robinson of the Kern County Fire Union for his assistance too in reaching out to those at the state level on our behalf. And with that, I'll hand it over to Ms. Martinez.
Ms. Martinez? Your microphone's not on.
As Mr. Alsop indicated, your board continued this item in order to provide staff the opportunity to discuss the request with the auditor controller and the treasurer tax collector. Our office met with county counsel and the auditor controller and discussed the request with the treasurer tax collector. Mr. Kaufman indicated that the fire fund cannot legally obtain loans from the pool after April 30th. Furthermore, Mrs. Bedard indicated that she's legally obligated to pay employees. Mr. Nation can provide you with all the legal details. However, at this time, our office continued to recommend that your board authorize a cash flow loan from the general fund to the fire fund in an amount not to exceed $14 million with a repayment date of July 9, 2018. While cash collections have improved over the last few days due to the assistance of the state agencies and our state legislative delegation, the unpredictability of those collections makes it necessary to establish the loan. As we indicated during the last board meeting, it is a revolving loan and it would only be accessed if needed. This concludes my prepared remarks. Mrs. Bedard and Mr. Kaufman are present in case your board has specific questions.
Thank you. Board members, any questions before we go to the public? What do members of the public wish to make comment to us this morning about this matter? Mr. Robinson? Good morning.
I was going to try to defer to Mr. Fluhart. Real quick, I just wanted to approach you and let you know that after last week's meeting, much to my chagrin, watching the dialogue go down, I took it upon myself to reach out to our state legislators. I spoke with members from both sides of the aisle and both houses, and they went to work on our behalf. And so much so that I got an email from Senator Bidak on Friday that indicated $42 million had already been sent to the state controller's office for payment on April 11th, and we should be receiving our share of that in the first week of May or sooner. I sent that email this morning to Mr. Alsop, and they also have another $28 million that's been processed and will be sent to the State Controller's office soon. So the money will be coming in short term, and I would encourage you to approve the loan to the fire department to keep operations going. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your help in Sacramento.
David
Fluhart.
Yes, Dave Fluhart, Havelock First District. I totally agree with him. Keep the cash flowing so that they can stay open. Also, I wanted to say that, you know, everybody's broke and you know, this $14 million, I don't know the specifics of it, but I'd imagine that the California government, they know you guys got some money saved up so they can hold you off and stall you out and just wait you out until they have to pay you and whatnot. And that's just the way governments work, and it just depends on if you're the target or not. Moving on, I know number 46 is a evaluation of the fire chief, and I hope when he goes back there, you guys aren't going to fire him. I hope you guys can talk about how to get the money out of the government, which it sounds like it's already coming and everything. So, you know, I want to stick up for the guy, because one thing he does value is the work between firefighters. I remember when Havelock was burning last year, you know, other counties and other entities came over Havelock and really put out that fire in a heartbeat. And, you know, that cooperation between the entities is really nice. And, you know, about the $14 million being slow getting here, you know, that's just what government does. Figure out where they can, you know, do this or do that for a buck, you know, and makes a vicious cycle and doesn't really create karma good. So I don't know, but I just want to say I support you there, Chief Marshal, and thank you. And board, have a good day.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to make comment to us about this item? Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Jim Starkey, Perry James Starkey. I'm coming to you to support the fire department. Had two uncles that were Kern County firemen, captains, engineers. We very much need to keep going with whatever we need to do, funding, to keep these guys on the ground as needed. This weekend, as you guys know, I've been here before, same subject, abandoned hotel next to a home for 41 elderly residents in hospice. Last week I lost my dad on Thursday.
Sorry for you.
Friday, it was nice because I got to go see my daughter play at the National Championship Volleyball Tournament that they qualified for the region. And Saturday, about 12 o'clock at night, I get a text, and it reads, the Eldon is on fire. It's bad, really bad. Smoke sparks are bellying over the top of Rose Garden. Get the clients out. We need these guys. Whatever you got to do that takes to fund these guys, we need these guys. Because here's the problem, is that we have code enforcement that a person like myself has come in front of the board. I've gone to the agencies, I've made complaints, I've tried to get things done about things that are code enforcement issues. Don't make these guys come out that on an item that should have been a code enforcement. We should have tore that place down years ago. You know, whenever the city responds and the county responds, and we've got 15 firefighters in a hotel that's not worth the ground that it's on, because code enforcement has not gone in, cited them, given a time frame to tear it down. And if they don't, we tear it down, we sell the property, and it goes into general fund. This is ridiculous. So for these guys have to try to get a loan to survive, to save my property, to save 41 clients, right, is absurd. Now, if we need to go and hire 2 more people at code enforcement, if we need to get back behind the sheriff and make sure that when the sheriff goes out and writes something down that we go ahead and follow through with it and get some of those people out of there, we need to do it. But to be not proactive and reactive on this and make guys take time out, putting field fires out that should have been at code enforcement, hotels that should have been burned down, it's a waste of their time. And we're not being very efficient with our money. So until we do that, I strongly support the chief in obtaining money so we can keep these guys on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Starkey.
Any questions?
No. Our condolences on the loss of your father.
Oh, thank you. You had a wonderful life.
Terrible event.
And the girls came in second in the nation.
For the public, the girls came in second in the nation. Okay, are there any other comments about this item from the public? Let's return to the board then. Colleagues, do you have any questions or concerns? Supervisor Gleason.
Thank you, Chairman. Appreciate it. Chief.
Yes, sir.
Morning, Chief.
Good morning.
I'm going to vote in support of this initiative. I'm going to do that primarily because I refuse to stand by and let anyone's paycheck be disturbed. I mean, so I'm going to support this. I don't like it, but I'm going to support it. I got also, and I appreciate the union coming forward and saying they made contacts with Senator Vidak's office. I've made contact with state reps' offices also, and what I'm hearing is that the OES is being responsive and that CAL FIRE is confused about the number. Is that what you're hearing?
Supervisor Gleason, through the chair, CAL FIRE is current on our Gray Book contract. That's the contract for service that we provide initial attack response within Kern County. The issue at hand is the fire cost reimbursements for the actual fires. And so there was some confusion last week on what has been paid. I do know this, that CAL FIRE, their billing department worked through the weekend processing bills specifically to Kern County. And as been said this morning, I anticipate money to start showing up soon.
Okay, so your confidence level in the recoupment of these dollars is 100%.
I'm a lot more confident, Supervisor Gleason, today than I was last week.
Okay. Have you looked at what we talked about last week in terms of establishing some type of reasonable perimeter around our mutual aid support for other organizations?
Supervisor Gleason, through the chair, I think what needs to occur so your board can make an informed decision and know exactly how the fire department operates is that I come back before the board and the public and explain how we work, not only in Kern County, but how the system works throughout the state. The benefits to our firefighters responding to emergencies, both in training, the financial benefits that the Kern County Fire Department receives, and explain it in plain language so everybody has an understanding, and especially your board, you can make informed decisions on how we go forward in the future.
The benefit of the mutual aid is obvious to me. I don't argue that. What I am arguing is the fact that I'm not willing to risk general fund dollars to the tune of $14 million to offset costs that we incur by sending troops to the Oregon border. That to me is an unreasonable request, and next year, if the trend continues, I'm going to have a lot more difficulty in making any approval on loans out of the general fund to offset those specific costs. Talking about trend lines, let's talk about that. Last year we talked about $2 million being, I think it was, your number was 2 million. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was $6 million last year. Whatever. The trend line is going in the wrong direction for this loan from the general fund to offset costs for this mutual aid stuff we do with other parts of California and Puerto Rico and everywhere else we go. Could you talk about the trend line and what you expect to see in that trend line coming down the street?
Supervisor Gleason, through the chair, wildland fires and natural disasters across the United States are, we've never seen anything like this. The fires that occurred, just take a look at what occurred in Ventura, Santa Barbara last December into January. That fire started down, Fillmore, Santa Paula, and before it was stopped, it was almost in Kern County. Largest fire, that's occurred in California's history. Trust me, I don't want to see these fires, and I sure don't want to see them in our backyard. We've already went through the Erskine fire, and our firefighters were on the front lines, protecting homes, protecting property, even as one of our firefighters' home burned down right in the middle of that as he was on the front lines. what we're seeing is an increasing trend in fires in California. We need to work together. This is a partnership between the state and federal fire agencies, local government. We realize the system hasn't kept up with this. And your Kern County Fire Department, which I'm so proud to lead, our firefighters are number one. That's why we're being requested. Our ability to respond to emergencies, I know our bulldozer crews helped save Hearst Castle. They were put on that mission specifically because they are the Kern County Fire Department. So yeah, we're an agency that is requested often. Do we go all the time? No. That is where we balance protecting the home front. Kern County's number one. But your Kern County firefighters are requested. They're on incident management teams. Yes, they were in Puerto Rico, and the benefit to that is when we have an earthquake here, we have people that are trained in dealing with mega disasters. There is a balance here, and I am in agreement that sometimes it's skewed, and at the local government level, you know, we're paying the price right now. $14 million that we're trying to get reimbursed. Yeah, we went and helped. When the fire season began last year, I didn't know we'd be at $14 million. Don't have a crystal ball. We will do a better job. That's my commitment to the board, our firefighters, the taxpayers of Kern County. So, yeah, we'll do a better job, sir.
Thanks, appreciate it. You talked about the Hearst Castle. Personally, I would prefer, I consider saving Mr. Stocky's immediate property more important to me than the Hearst Castle. I mean, Hearst Castle is their problem, Mr. Stocky's my problem.
Correct.
And I want to support Mr. Stocky and people like him, and I don't want to have to risk general fund dollars that are being spent to save other places, because to me, they have less value. So when you say yes or no to your, in your decision matrix to send troops to places, is this factor involved the financial, that you may at the end of the year have a loan that exceeds your ability to pay it, or you have expended money that you can't pay out of your normal, is this entered into your decision-making process, or how are you going to make the change next year so that we're not here again?
Supervisor Gleason, through the chair, honestly, in the past, it's never been an issue, so it never really came to the forefront. We responded to emergencies. Now with the issue at hand, $14 million loan, delayed payments, yeah, protection of the general fund, protection of the fire fund, making sure we're at the end of the budget year with money available. Yeah, it's a new day. I agree.
The number one, but you also said, I'm just things falling to my mind. The thing you said about being the number one fire department, I respect the heck out of that. I think that's wonderful, and I agree with you. But number one here, in Kern County first, we need to make sure that Kern County is defended and supported 100% in your decision making. I'm not saying before, you know, you've got to work that through, but I don't care what other people consider us number one. I want us to be number one here in Kern County and viewed by our people here as number one. That has priority for me. Also, Ms. Martinez, you mentioned the fact, you used the date April 30th as a cutoff date from when we couldn't go to the Treasury pool to offset these costs, and then we had to go to the general fund. Could you explain that one more time for me?
Correct. As I indicated last board meeting, the fire fund really operates on negative cash until they receive property taxes. So they can borrow against the Treasury pool because they are a taxing agency all the way through the last Monday of April, so that will be April 30th. Past that, they do not have that ability, and because we're in a position where there's still negative cash, they're gonna have to borrow from another fund. And the general fund is the fund that doesn't have restrictions when lending money. That's why we use the general fund.
Thank you. Chief, I got one more question for you. Going back to your discussion about the trend going in the wrong direction, the extreme dead forest we've got out there, the changing circumstances, the drought, the adding stress to your job. and then your thoughts about this trend line that's going in the wrong direction in terms of the loan that we're talking about. How are you going to make it so that next year we're not here again? Could you give me some specifics on how you're going to do that?
Supervisor Gleason, through the chair, we're going to have to monitor our drawdown levels. That's the ability, or that's the level of comfort with sending people out and still protecting Kern County first. That is our #1 priority, and we always make sure Kern County's protected. As we go into fire season, there may be more decisions where we say no in order to protect our financial resources.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. I'm going to support this move, this effort. I want Mr. Stockey to know that I agree with everything he said, and that his property is precious to me. That Hearst Castle is not, and as far as me being a county supervisor. And I'm going to direct my thoughts and energies and support to you, Chief. As someone else commented earlier about you as being the best chief, and I forget how the wording came around, but I think you are too. I think you do a damn good job, and I'm proud to have you as our fire chief. And I'm looking forward to working closely with you to ensure that your budget, not only this loan doesn't come up, but your budget adjustments are going to be made accordingly, and I'm looking forward to supporting you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor Gleason. Supervisor Couch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Elsa. I just have a couple of questions, then I'm going to make a motion in favor to adopt the staff's recommendation. Chief, I think that's the idea of you coming back with sort of a report or just an explanation of how the mutual aid system works would be beneficial, not only for me, but I think it is beneficial for the public to understand why we send firefighters out of county, what benefit we derive from that, and how the whole system actually works. For obvious reasons, so they don't think we're just funding efforts other places on their dime, on our taxpayers' dime. Is this possible? And I recognize this is not the year to do this in any big way, but I think we should start this. Is there a reserve? I don't believe this is the case. Is there a line item in the budget as a reserve in your fire department budget for this very issue? Because I think you're going to, in the future, you're going to continue to be involved in the mutual aid system. You're going to continue to send firefighters out of county. But it would be really nice if you had some money stocked away so that when that did occur, you could draw upon that. You wouldn't need to come to the general fund. I recognize you can't put money away this year with the way the budget is. You might not be able to put money away for years, but I'd like to see you start that and put $1 in it in this year's budget, just to get the line item there. Because if we never get the line item there, we're never going to put any money in it. Is that a legal, allowable move?
Supervisor Couch to the chair. It is legal and allowable. However, they do not have the cash to set aside a cash reserve.
I understand that. That's why I preface it with,
Yeah.
I recognize this is not the best place,
Yes.
best time to do that. But establishing that line item for this specific purpose and funding it with $1, just to get it on the books, so you know that each year when you do your budget, if there's extra revenue, that you can begin funding that. I just think that would be helpful. We may not be alive to see when that is helpful, but one day a chief may thank you for doing that.
Supervisor Couch, through the chair, we have various designations where we had started saving money. That was one of the things that I worked on with my staff, to put money aside, not only for just general designations, a savings account, if you will, but for fire apparatus. And one of the things that with this fire reimbursement, we do have recaptured overhead. We do take money and put into trust funds to support like our helicopter operations, because that's a very expensive program. So we do certain things like you're saying. As far as saving for this specific reason.
This would just be one additional reserve.
Right, and I can work with the CAO's office to make that happen.
Okay. When you prepare your bill, I've been asked 2 questions, and I said I would get the answer. I probably should have called you earlier, but I think they're fairly straightforward. when you're preparing what your invoice or your bill, whatever you call it, that goes to CAL FIRE or OAS, whomever you're sending it to, are you able to charge an interest rate, or is it just assumed that the 10% overhead covers our out-of-pocket expense for them really working on our money?
Supervisor Couch, through the chair, we've never explored an interest rate. That would take discussions with our state and federal partners. We do have the 10% recaptured overhead administrative rate that we bill, and that's a methodology that's established. All fire departments bill on that methodology.
Okay. The other question I was asked, and this is I recognize this question is about the Erskine fire. The Erskine fire started here in Kern County. But was there federal funding that came to us as a result of that?
Supervisor Couch, through the chair, yes. Early in the evening that the fire started, we requested a federal fire management assistance grant through FEMA. Supervisor Gleason was on the conference call around midnight when FEMA approved that grant. That provides 75% of the funding to local governments only, not CAL FIRE, not the U.S. Forest Service, for us to be fighting a fire in our own backyard. So yes.
Whatever funding was available to us for that event, we have received. Is that correct?
That's correct. When we have a fire in our own backyard, like the Erskine fire, we are receiving money to fight that fire either through the FMAG or actually several different ways. FMAG, U.S. Forest Service is funding the firefight because the fire's occurring on their land, also CAL FIRE. So we're all playing in this world.
Can you let us know, do you know this, what was the fire, or let me say it another way, what is the oldest invoice outstanding? For which fire, for how much money is that? From the oldest being from the time you submitted your bill. Do you know the answer to that?
I'm Supervisor Couch, through the chair. I do not have that fire information in front of me.
Could Steve look that up? He doesn't have to look it up right now, but I'd just be interested to know, sort of a case study on one particular event. What's the oldest one?
Supervisor Couch will come back with that information.
Thank you for that. Again, I'll make a motion to support staff's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Couch. Supervisor Perez.
I have a question for you, Chief. It appears to be pretty obvious that the fire crises, if you will, are going to increase and not decrease around the state of California. And it would appear to me that fire departments increasingly will be relying upon each other to manage what is horrifically complex, changing geography and topography around fire issues, to the point of national crisis, it would appear. How will you be perceived by fire departments around the state if you do not send your people, our people, the way in which we rely upon others to be here for us, like during the Erskine fire, or any attempts to not be as much of a team player, if you will, as you've been in the past? The idea of this team player system in a state of 58 counties that equal the state of California, it would appear to me to be pretty significant that you are part of that larger firefighting effort that certainly is not limited to any particular jurisdiction. And I'm a little concerned about it, frankly. I think you've tried to be a good player in being a team player and recognizing the complexity of this particular crisis. Can you speak to that?
Supervisor Perez, through the chair, the motto in the California Fire Service is nobody stands alone. We have to help. And it's just not wildland fires. Earthquakes, floods, our firefighters were on the front line in Santa Barbara and Montecito doing search and rescue operations. So it's a global aspect. We never know what the disaster is going to be. Again, your Kern County firefighters are number one. They're requested. They're on incident management teams, both through federal and state fire agencies. The resources we have, the knowledge, training, abilities, our firefighters are matched by nobody. So yes, responding. If we don't respond, it will hurt the system because it's taking everybody. Every fire agency is on the front lines in these mega wildland fires.
And we depend on them to do the same for us, as they did during the Erskine fire. You know, this family of firefighters, that's not limited to jurisdiction. So I'm concerned about that, Chief, and I'd like that to be part of your continued evaluation as you come forward. I imagine other fire departments are feeling the squeeze around the state because of this horror that is upon us, and the cost of it is more than we can bear. At the state, it is a genuine, legitimate crisis that appears to me we need all hands on deck, and we need to be really on the same team when it comes to managing this over the long term, because it's not going anywhere and it's going to get worse. This appears to me to be very clear, as it does to the governor, and I think the best people that we rely on in emergency services in the state. So I want you to know I'm sensitive to that. That's important to me. It's important to the state. And we need others as much as they need us. And, you know, I want to be cautious about overreacting to what is a fiscal crisis for us, but what can become much worse if we are not part of the larger apparatus of managing crisis of this nature. So I just want to express that to you, express my gratitude to firefighters and others that are clearly understand that fires are not limited to county lines or jurisdictions, and they're quite vicious. So thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Supervisor Perez. Supervisor Gleason.
Chief, could you please get me a list of all other county fire departments that responded to the Erskine fire?
Supervisor Gleason, that's affirmative.
Thank you. I don't see any other requests to speak. I'll make my support for this motion apparent now. I do support the extension of the loan. Ms. Martinez, one of my concerns is that we be fiscally responsible. When we made advances to the Kern Medical Center years ago, at first those advances were made without a specific due date, a time by which we would come back and revisit whether or not we had been repaid or not, and that was allowed to kind of mushroom over the years. That is not the case here. Could you just explain to the public that we have an element of this extension of these funds is a date certain by which we will be repaid, or we will revisit the issue and renew the loan if necessary?
Mr. Chairman, you are correct. We are requesting that your board authorize the loan with a repayment date no later than July 9, 2018. At that time, the fire fund will be able again to borrow from the treasury pool and use those funds to repay the general fund.
Thank you very much. There was never a question that we wouldn't pay those who have given the service and extended the help to others that we want them to extend to us. There was never a question about that. The issue was whether or not it was being done prudently. There is an expectation by this board that we bill as quickly and efficiently as possible, and then dog those that owe us that money until they pay us, so that we can do a better job of that. But I, too, am grateful for the great work that our fire department does, and the members of the fire department when they go on these calls. It's not unreasonable to question you know, where the extent of our responsibility, and I'm sure we'll do that as we go forward. So I am happy to vote in favor of the motion. So we have a motion. Was there a second? Supervisor
I'll second the
Supervisor Scrivener is extending a second. Are there any other comments? Please cast your votes.
I know, Supervisor Maggard, I know you voted yes, so the motion is approved, all ayes.
Thank you. Yeah, don't let there be any confusion about that. Oh, I forgot to say one thing about that issue. The code enforcement issue is not a small issue. Mr. Starkey brings that to mind. At the corner of 34th and 34th and Jewett in East Bakersfield is an abysmal pile of trash behind a closed business. That imperils the lives and property of all those who surround it. So I don't know what we need to do with Public Works and with Code Enforcement and Mr. Alsop, but a redoubling of our efforts to make sure that Code Enforcement is vigorously dealing with those dangers. It is not just that it's unsightly, it is a danger to public safety. So I'll look forward to that, not only Mr. Starkey's concerns, but for example, the one I'm suggesting at 34th and Jewett. Okay, thank you. Next up is item number 37, which is under Public Health Services. Mr. Constantine, would you like to tee this up?
Yes, sir. This item before you this morning is an appeal from Xue Yun Li to contest the Kern County Public Health Services decision to revoke the massage establishment permit for Bonnie Massage located at 3704 North Chester Suite B in Bakersfield. This decision was based on the violations of the Kern County Ordinance Code found during an undercover decoy operation conducted by the Kern County Sheriff's Office on January 23rd, 2018. So for just a little bit of the background, on January 9th, 2018, the owner submitted an application for a massage establishment permit for a business called Bonnie Massage, and it was indicated by Ms. Lee that she is the only massage therapist at the facility, and that is included as attachment A in your staff report. On January 23rd, 2018, an undercover decoy operation was conducted by the Sheriff's Office. During that operation, another individual, Ms. Jang, was cited for violations of the Kern County Ordinance by the Sheriff's Department, and that's attachment B in your staff report. Following the issuance of this citation, on January 23rd, the Public Health Department also issued a notice of violation and revocation of the ability to operate the massage establishment, and this also provided an appeal process for the owner to appeal this decision by providing any additional documentation that they wanted us to consider within 15 days. Now, since the owner was still in the process of obtaining a massage establishment permit, 2 days later on the 25th, Public Health also issued a notice of denial of the massage establishment permit for Bonnie Massage due to the violations that occurred 2 days prior. On February 5th, 2018, Public Health did receive a request of an appeal to the department's decisions from the law office of a Mr. Caputo, who stated that he was representing both the massage therapist and the business owner, and that is attachment E in your staff report. Now, due to the fact that no additional information was submitted to the department, 1 month later on March 5th, 2018, Public Health issued a notice of decision to uphold the revocation of the ability to operate the massage establishment. A notice was provided to Mr. Caputo, giving him the right to appeal this decision to your board within 30 days, and that's attachment F in your staff report. And then finally, on March 29th, 2018, the clerk of the board did receive a request to appeal the department's decision to the Board of Supervisors from Mr. William Slocum. Mr. Chairman, that concludes our initial summary of events, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Constantine. Do any members of the board have questions before we go to hear from the appellant or their attorney? Okay, is somebody here to speak on behalf of the appellant, Ms. Yun Li?
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board.
Good morning, sir.
My name is Max Koenig. I'm here with Mr. Slocum's office to address this particular matter. Without disputing the particular events that led to the initial citation with Ms. Zhang, I want to address the way the county wishes to approach particular violations. In this particular instance, we have a business owner who has invested resources in establishing a business. In fact, I have, if the board, if the chairman wishes or allows, I have just some basic documents about the investment, the permitting process, and those types of things that Ms. Lee did go through. Initially, she was operating, I think, under a sheriff's office permit. Then the system changed based on a vote late last summer or early fall that the environmental health would take over permitting process. She dutifully went through that particular process. when she did apply, she is the sole owner.
Mr. Koenig, would you like us to have those for our record? You can present them to the clerk, sir.
5 copies there.
Thank you.
And if need be, I'll give mine up so everyone can have a copy, including Mr. Constantine.
We'll get that covered, sir. Thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Please proceed.
I just want to know, while I'm even looking at it, it looked like it was a $1,600 charge just for the permit application, which struck me as extraordinary, especially in light of it quickly being rejected out of hand. If we look at the police report that I was given and the initial citation, I was informed through Mr. Constantine, in a letter to Mr. Slocum, that he had simply relied on the initial citation, that the other information apparently wasn't available to him at the time of his initial decision-making. The original attorney Caputo declared a conflict. That's how it ended up in Mr. Slocum's office, and that's the background to our advent here. Looking at the ordinances themselves and how the board and the county wishes to address it, revocation or denial or refusal to renew seems to be predicated on the owner or the manager permitting a violation of some sort or another. We know in this particular case, there was no violation in any of the process, or at least noted the way the facility operated or was prepared to operate, other than the final violation of touching the genitals of this particular sheriff's deputy who was undercover. If we look at 8.70.080, it addresses the permit holder, and it makes the manager or managing employee the equivalent of the permit holder. Ms. Lee is the only permit holder, owner, or manager of this particular case. And so what the citation has done is taken an errant employee who was instructed, we do massages, we don't do other things, such as what she did do. And because of that one errant employee, we went to destroy the business this woman has tried to build. I think that is excessive in light of other potential remedies or administrative remedies that are cited later on in the code. And I speak specifically to 8.70.130, violations of administrative penalties. As a result of...
Sir, could you just stay a little bit closer to the microphone?
All right.
You're a tall fellow, and we're having trouble hearing you.
How's that?
Thank you, sir.
I've never been accused of talking too softly in a venue like this.
We may change our mind.
Well, ultimately what has happened is Ms. Lee has been out of business since the initial order and has not operated. In light of the fact that it was a mere employee who conducted business, if you read the police report, somewhat surreptitiously. In other words, she did not want others to know, and she certainly didn't tell my client. This employee, Ms. Zhang, has left the community. We have no notice of how to contact her. And so this errant employee has caused this cavalcade of penalties visited on my client after substantial investment in this business. Now, I'll propose, Chairman and members of the board, that is simply excessive, that there are other penalties, or the fact that the penalty has been visited on Ms. Zhang. I'll note that the district attorney's office has yet to take up the citation for reasons I don't know. But there has been no criminal adjudication of Ms. Zhang's conduct. But if we look at the police report, they did invest considerable time in trying to find out if there was some kind of coercion that Ms. Zhang was forced to be there. or even that she was not free to go. She admitted she's free to go, she keeps the money. She's still supposed to pay, you know, or still employed by the business, so some of the money has to stay there. Now, the sheriff's deputy had stated that the original half-hour massage was paid for, the additional time was paid for at $10. Everything was above board and appropriate to the business practices that time. It was only after that that things went sideways with Ms. Zhang and the deputy. My client has nothing to do with that. And so she has already been closed. She has endeavored to comply with all the rules in the makeup of the business, the structure of it, the provision of it, and to summarily close her down, I would submit is excessive, and this board does not want to take that action.
Mr. Koenig, thank you for your comments. Any other comments from your client who's there beside you?
I've given you a verbal representation of what she says. If you want her to tell you the same things about how it's run, I can ask her questions through the interpreters here.
No, sir, that's not necessary, unless you deem, we believe you're here as her agent and attorney. So.
Yes, I'll submit it then.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Constantine, would you like to respond to anything that Mr. Koenig said? Mr. Koenig, you could have a seat if you like, so you have to just stand there and do that. And your client, of course.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just to reiterate, the ordinance 8.70.100 subsection B clearly states that no owner, manager, operator, or employee or subcontractor of a massage establishment while on the premise shall engage in any of those activities which in fact they were cited against. So it's pretty clearly stated that even the employee. And then finally, in the same section, so 8.70.100 subsection G, it says personal knowledge of any violation of this section shall not be required to be shown where a massage establishment permit is suspended or revoked. I think both of those sections are responsive to some of the comments that were mentioned. Other than that, I don't have any other comments.
Thank you. Would any members of the public like to make comment about this item before we go to the board for their questions and whatever action we end up taking? Okay, let's return to the board then. Supervisor Perez, did you punch in?
Mr. Constantine, I want to express my deep and profound gratitude to you and your team for what you have done to uncover and expose these operations for what they really are. I sat with you extensively in my office and reviewed the evidence that you have taken great lengths to establish and acquire. To say that I was disgusted is a very minor description of how I felt in reviewing the very extensive evidence that you have collected painstakingly. I was angry, brokenhearted, recalled many young girls that I worked with as a public defender that were sex trafficked. And so I find it particularly appalling to hear arguments here that could have some rationale I purport in a courtroom or in a setting apart from human beings. And they are really all evidence of trafficking. Whoever this individual is, very likely a victim, is no longer here in all likelihood because of this particular matter, and the DA is probably not pursuing it for lack of jurisdiction over the personal individual who has been moved to another place and is being forced into the same kind of conduct. So really my gratitude and respect for you grows as I see what your team is doing in this community to shed light on behavior that is beyond despicable. It's shocking and heartbreaking. And I'm really grateful to you. And I'd like to move on your recommendation. And I hope and wish and pray that these victims, true victims in this, see some light in what you're exposing. So thank you. That's my motion.
We have a motion. Is there anybody else who'd like to make comment? Supervisor Gleason.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it. Thank you for your words and your thoughts. I want to go over this I want to understand this because this is elements of a bigger picture that I want to address and I want to get to. So bear with me as I go through this, and Mr. Constantine, you can answer questions. So you have a sting operation, let's call it that word for no other reason, and you have a team of officers who are, one wears a camera, goes into establishments, massage parlors, and take us through that as gently as you can.
Sure. So in general, this is all coordinated by the Kern County Sheriff's Office. We do participate to some degree, but it's under their authority and their control. They have assigned officers that approach this. They survey the facilities for safety reasons first. They then identify an undercover sheriff's deputy that will participate. He does go in and he solicits for a massage, and there is a discussion at a certain point if additional services will be offered. And if additional services are offered, then that is enough for then law enforcement to cite the massage therapist against either the ordinance or the penal code, depending on what activity took place.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't remember your name, sir.
Koenig, Mr. Koenig.
Come on up, please. I got a question for you. This isn't a court of law. I'm going to ask you some questions. Maybe you can give me some answers. Ms. Lee is the owner?
Yes.
Does Ms. Lee know where Ms. Young is?
No.
Do you have other employees similar to Ms. Young?
She only had Miss Jiang as an employee.
You need to answer that, sir.
You want to go through Mr. Koenig?
All right. Only Ms. Jung.
Is Ms. Young a legal resident of the United States?
Yes.
Yes.
How do you know?
She has green card.
She has a green card.
Thank you. Is your business all cash?
Yes.
Where did you find Ms. Young? How did you get her to work for you?
She using advertisement and then Miss Jiang called.
Ms. Lee advertised. Ms. Jung responded to the advertisement.
Was the advertisement in the newspaper?
Through the website advertisement.
What website do you know?
WeChat. Through the WeChat website.
Through a WeChat website.
Oh, what is the name of it?
WeChat.
WeChat. Is that W-E-C-H-A-T?
WeChat 是 W-E-C-H-A-T. She say in a Chinese terminology.
Oh.
Chinese terminology.
Right. So it's a Chinese language on that website.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, by all appearances.
Does she have other employees? Oh, she has no other employees. I asked that question. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you. Any comments about what I just went through there? I have some questions for you. We've done this sting operation, for lack of other words, let's call it a sting operation, on how many other agencies, places?
10 other facilities.
And how many problems did you have with those 10 other facilities?
All 10.
And the same common problem?
Yes, sir.
Were the victims and I use the word victim as being the lady, I think it was a lady, who was in the place, being the business, not the owner, but the participant, the massagist.
Yes.
Okay, was that person, were they all Chinese?
They all spoke Mandarin only and not English.
When we went up to them and started talking with them, we don't know if they came from one geographical area of China? We don't even know if they came from China.
No, sir, don't know.
So how are we going to, if you take this as a bigger picture, how are we going to build a case that we're trying to solve a problem other than just, you know, one simple issue that the ordinance addresses, but I'm trying to find out if there's some other, if this issue is larger than what we're looking at.
Yeah, Supervisor Gleason, through the chair, we share your concerns and believe that is the case, that this is just a small part of it. We do work with the Sheriff's Department in trying to identify if those that are being cited are victims of human trafficking. They have not been able to prove that, but it is our belief from public health that that is a case. It is a challenging position for us. I don't have a good answer for you today.
Right.
This is a new area for us. We've reached out to some of the organizations that are involved in this nationwide and worldwide because they bring greater experience to this whole idea. But I don't yet have a formed approach to how we should handle this. It's a difficult one.
Right. The WeChat, are you going to look into that?
I will now, yes, sir.
Thank you very much. I'm concerned that when you make the approach, you know, there's an event that's occurring, the guy gives a password, 8 officers come in or something like that, and you take action appropriately to stop what's happening and to fix the situation. But I'm concerned about that young lady there who may be a victim in a larger sense.
Yes.
And how do we go about addressing that particular situation? Or do we now address that particular situation?
We need to start evaluating how we can address it. We have not.
So is there some way that we can build some collaborative effort so when we move that event, during that event, we can address her situation or his, whatever it is? I mean,
yeah, absolutely. Yes, sir. We need to coordinate with the Sheriff's Department and those other experts in that field to figure out how to help.
Now, my understanding is that since we issued this ordinance, in your estimation, I remember you saying you thought we had like 70 storefronts. Is that correct?
Yeah, we knew of about 35. We estimated there was probably 70 likely in the unincorporated area of the county.
And tell me, since that time, what have you found?
So we had identified 52 known facilities. We have had many that have started going through the process, but today we actually have 2 active health permits and 4 businesses that are in the process of obtaining a health permit.
And these are businesses that have solid reputations, that provide a solid service, and we can have confidence in their product.
We believe there's organizations out there that are doing a good job and truly following the rules and doing it for the right reasons, yes.
Do we have any idea where Ms. Chun may be now?
I do not. Now, my information differs a little bit from the attorney, but from our understanding, there was a bench warrant issued for her and she did not appear at her trial date. I'm going to confirm that now that after today, but our belief is she didn't show. So the answer is no, we don't know her whereabouts.
So you're also going to look into the possibility of having a more collaborative effort when they make that operation occur, so we have other people that can look at the totality of the circumstance and try to bring some sense into what's going on?
Yes, sir.
Human trafficking is a major problem. There are different cultures involved. People have in the Orient understand that there's differences in the way they approach things. And we are seeing that here, and we just have to respect some cultures and not respect others and take the best of what we can. I think I'm done. I heard Ms. Perez make the motion. I'm going to second the motion.
Thank you. Any other members of the board wish to make comment? I'd like to ask a couple questions of Mr. Constantine. Mr. Constantine, the establishment that is appealing to us today has apparently applied for a permit to operate. When was the time that they were supposed to originally apply for that permit?
Mr. Chairman, the ordinance was passed by the board in August to allow businesses an ample...
August of what year, sir?
August of 2017. Apologize. To give the businesses ample time to be made aware of the ordinance. We sent out letters to all known facilities and asked them to comply no later than November 30th. We did not hear from this business at the end of November 30th. We did extend it one more time to the end of December. Again, a formal written notice that says you must comply. They did not. Now, they did apply in early January. So they did eventually, but it was 6 months later.
And was this particular location ever vetted to see if it had the appropriate infrastructure for a licensed massage facility?
So the business had applied for a permit. It is estimated a 90-day process where we review all manners of detail, the backgrounds of the business owners. We look at zoning. We look at building records. They had not completed that process prior to us arriving with the Sheriff's Department.
So the vetting has not occurred because they were already deemed to be non-compliant because of prostitution occurring at the site? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Is there, in the process when the application is made, is the owner of the business required to reveal on the application all of those who will be performing services at the site?
Mr. Chairman, there's a specific one-page form that asks for them to identify all those massage therapists that will be providing massage and then submit that form to us.
And did Ms. Lee submit something with who her employees or contract labor would be?
She submitted the form with only her name on the list.
So the person who has committed the offense that has resulted in today's appeal, the person that was performing the act of prostitution was not listed, is that correct, on her application?
That's correct. She was not listed.
And was the owner required to have that person's name on there?
Absolutely.
So is that another violation?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that addresses human trafficking and the larger issues, so that was absent in the form submitted.
Thank you very much. Human trafficking is a stain on our society. It is a tragedy that has implications in many, many different directions, and we are determined to do what we can to minimize and remove that scourge from our community. This location, as is the case with many, many others, is nested in a neighborhood next to businesses that are legitimate, children that walk by. There are homes just down the street, almost adjacent to this particular property. It's currently in the 1st District. It's about to be in the 3rd District. This is something we must be vigilant about, and I am happy to lend all of my support and vote in favor of the denial of the appeal. We have a request, I believe, from Supervisor Perez.
Like you, I'm concerned about the people here more than homes or anything else, frankly. The individuals who are complete victims and really don't have a voice that you've given to. Again, thank you. Has the group of people that are here today or that you've been working with in this issue ever expressed any concern for this individual, where she is, how she is doing? Have you ever seen any concern whatsoever for this person?
No, ma'am. We have had no discussions about the individual that was there that night. When we went in with the Sheriff's Department, she was the only employee in that facility for the entire time. She was by herself, and we have no information about her, nor have we had any discussions with the owner about her current situation.
So I'll reiterate my motion. Thanks. And again, appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Scribner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of quick questions. Mr. Constantine, you said that there are 10 locations that where we sent an undercover decoy, and all 10 had issues. And is this the only one of the 10 that's indicated an appeal?
No, sir. There are a few others that have requested a department-level appeal so that they can submit additional information, and they're working through that process. This is the first one that has reached your board, obviously.
Okay. Yes. Thanks. So we may have more of these that are coming. And so you talked about working with other organizations, larger organizations that are trying to combat human trafficking. And so I would be interested in you coming back and giving us a report on those efforts as you are able to make some progress, because as has been said here, the victims of this should be the main concern for us. And I'd be interested to see if we can make any progress in that arena with the help of others. So thank you.
Supervisor Couch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going to ask something similar to what Supervisor Scrivener just asked, but how can we have a really substantive briefing on what's being done without letting all the bad actors know what's being done? How do we do that?
In regards to massage facilities or just the overall human trafficking issue, Supervisor?
Well, both.
And I'll be honest, although we have assisted in some parts of human trafficking, we have not been on the front line with human trafficking in the past. And this now catapults us into that arena. And there are areas that public health can add support. But there are others that have participated in this endeavor a lot longer than we have. So we need to bring them to the table, and we need to learn from them. And I'm certain that the other organizations can provide a consensus overview of what we face in Kern County, and I'll try to pull that together.
Okay, thank you for your help.
Okay, we have a motion by Supervisor Perez, a second by Supervisor Gleason. Are there any other discussion before we cast our votes? Please cast your votes. The motion is to deny the appeal.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Next is, there are no other matters before us this morning, so we will adjourn to closed session, reconvene at 2 o'clock this afternoon. Is there a motion that we adjourn to closed session? We have a motion by Supervisor Gleason without objection, so ordered. Thank you very much. We'll see you at 2 o'clock.